Welcome to this episode of the Palmetto Guardian, where today we'll be talking about public affairs and the state partnership program. Welcome to this episode of the Palmetto Guardian. I'm Specialist David Erskine.
And I'm Captain Jessica Donnelly.
Yes, Specialist Baker's not here with us this week.
So I'm filling in.
Yeah, so Captain Donnelly, we went all the way to the top. We didn't even stop. We went straight for the public affairs officer herself to come in and sit in. We said we have to have the top talent, and so we went and got it. So, but, you know, it's a cool opportunity since Captain Donnelly is stopping by with us today that we can talk about public affairs. And myself and Specialist Baker did talk public affairs a little bit.
You guys did a great job.
We talked more of a technical side of it. You know, we talked about how technology has changed our career field and kind of what we do. But with you here, we can kind of talk about public affairs from an organizational standpoint.
Right. Because the big thing I want to make sure that people understand is that we aren't just here to just take photos of ceremonies or to take video of ceremonies or even just do the podcast, which has been a great resource for everyone. But we're here to actually showcase your unit's mission and to be able to tell the story of the entire South Carolina National Guard, soldiers and airmen, all the way down to that level. We're not just here to showcase that top level. And so, you know, the big thing is that, and our biggest struggle is making sure that people know who we are and where we are and how to contact us. So that we can cover those stories prior to the event.
Prior to the event.
Yep.
Don't call us 15 minutes into the event.
No,
it's
please
a little hard
don't.
for us to get there.
Yep.
Another thing that kind of goes along with public affairs and kind of from the big organizational part of it, and you kind of mentioned it, but I always thought it was kind of a big deal from my perspective, was the fact of telling the story.
Yes.
And telling our story and how, I don't want to make it sound like this, but sometimes, I mean, we're there to kind of tell the story to help, because sometimes the story other people tell isn't always great about us. And the thing is our airmen, our soldiers are doing great things.
They are. And actually a great resource that you guys have started for the state of South Carolina, for South Carolina National Guard, is the Know Your Mill. And that's a great way to tell that individual level of what the soldiers and airmen are doing, because too often we look at you as just a number whenever you're in the organization, because as a whole, we are this strong force. But we want to make sure that the public knows who we are and who the people are that make up the South Carolina National Guard as a whole.
Now, another big part of public affairs deals with is the natural disasters.
Yes, we are out there too.
And we've learned. We've learned over the years that not having public affairs, you don't think about it.
Right.
When a hurricane's coming, you don't
when
think,
it's happening.
Hey, we need
right.
public affairs. Half the state's about to get lifted off the planet.
Right. But the citizens see that too. And their question is, and this is the question you never want to hear, is where is the National Guard? And so even if they aren't seeing them directly in their communities, we need to be able to answer that question. And we use public affairs in that sense, because we have the Specialist Erskines and you know, everyone else in the 108th Public Affairs Detachment, and they're actually going down and they're embedding with those lead task force, and they're embedding with those soldiers and airmen who are responding to those natural disasters, and they are showcasing what we're doing in the communities. So it's this amazing opportunity, but it gives us a chance to message what we do as the National Guard whenever the governor does activate us.
And you mentioned the 108th pad, and I think people don't always realize
that we have that, right?
That we have
that resource.
And then really what makes up public affairs around the state, the fact that we have public affairs people in place at the MSCs. We have the 108th pad, which is very fluid.
Yes, they move all around. They're actually our field asset for the state. And so they can move around to any unit within the state and provide that coverage. And not only in those natural disasters, but any kind of relevant training, fielding of new equipment, anything that showcases our force as that ready, responsible, resilient, relevant, any of that kind of stuff, that's what we're here to help do, because we want to be able to message what we do as an entire organization.
Yeah, and that's huge. That's huge. If people don't know, that's huge. I mean, you're talking about This is something every Fortune 500 company and everything else is what they have. When you hear it, we're not exactly PR, but those people out in the civilian world that are PR and public information officers and whatever else, that's kind of what we do. PR tends to spin, we're more newsy than that, but that's what we're here for. We're part of the network, I guess, for telling the story.
Good and bad.
Good and bad. I can't remember if it's actually in the reg, but I remember reading something one time about public affairs, and it talked about public affairs controls the flow of information, internal and external, per commander's policy.
Right.
So command information
is a big one, and these podcasts are a great way to get out that command information and have a wider reach.
Shameless plug.
Right,
Podcast.
exactly.
Yeah, command. People think, public affairs doing this and this. We're doing what we're doing because
the leadership wants us to. Yes.
They want us to. The other thing is I think people don't necessarily realize about public affairs is how much we're actually all over the place.
Yes.
I mean, talk about it a little bit. In fact, we could be in the field. We'd be,
Yeah, actually, so right now we have someone at Fort Stewart who's embedding with the infantry and aviation to be able to provide coverage, because that's a great opportunity. You have those dual units working together. So we have someone there who's providing coverage for that. But also, we just had someone who just returned from Colombia, and they had embedded with the infantry there as part of the state partnership program and provided coverage in Colombia.
So, yeah, I mean, we're wherever we are. I know that sounds a little dumb or weird, but
we're where you are.
Right. When I say we are, I'm talking about the South Carolina National Guard. We go, we put ourselves in the same conditions and environment.
We're in the field. We're doing that right alongside the soldiers and airmen that are responding to those missions too.
Yeah. Speaking of airmen, we haven't even mentioned our counterparts in blue, but the 169th Fighter Wing has their public affairs office ran by Senior Master Sergeant Snyder and his group that's been out there. And another thing that people might not realize about public affairs is we are massively joint.
Yes, we work together all the time, Air and Army. So even though we're both wearing this uniform, we actually work hand in hand with the South Carolina Air National Guard as well. And another thing that people don't realize too is we also deploy. Public affairs deploys overseas and embeds with these units as well. And because you're only in South Carolina National Guard, that's not the only time we want to tell your story. We want to be able to tell the federal story as well.
Right. And and the unique thing about that with public affairs is, if you're part of an infantry unit, you're part of an infantry unit. That's who you work. That's your pace. If you're part of an aviation unit, you're part of an aviation unit. And so when you deploy at that pace of aviation or engineering or whatever else. But for public affairs, when we deploy in those situations, we're getting pulled out of this, and we're not only are we doing our job when we go, but we're also learning your tempo, your pace, your systems, and how you do things so that we can interact. And you've actually had to do that over.
Yep, and with that though too is that's why we have priorities of coverage, and those are the kind of things that we're trying to looking for. Is that we want to make sure that we're showcasing the most relevant stuff, like the actual stuff that shows the unit's mission, and make sure that that's what we're providing coverage for. Too often we just get called in at the last minute to cover a ceremony, and that's not what we're here for. We're really here to showcase what we do as both in the state and for the nation whenever we are federalized. And so we're not just here to cover retirements and awards ceremony and anything like that. We're really here to showcase a relevant force.
No, I'll say this because I've been lucky enough in my public affairs career that my leadership has allowed me some latitude on like projects and things that I work on. And we call them the hoo-ha video, the best warrior type stuff. And those aren't always necessarily a priority,
right?
Because they're not necessarily news, but
they're still important.
I've been lucky enough that that's been allowed by leadership and stuff to let me do it. But for me, the main reason I like doing them is for the morale part.
Yes, soldiers love to see it. Soldiers and airmen love to see when their career field is showcased like that, and then they can show that to their friends and their family. Because again, public affairs, we want to make sure that people outside of the South Carolina National Guard actually know what we do. And so that gives them the opportunity to showcase, this is what I do on drill weekends. Isn't this cool?
Right, and that's a big part, and you mentioned that, is, you always hear, or you hear sometimes about units where people are a little downtrodden and, they're whatever. I mean, it happens. That's part of life. That's
right.
Not just military. That's civilian sector.
It is.
You go down to McDonald's right now, and you can talk to 5 out of the 10 staff that's working right now, and at least 4 of them are going to be like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it today.
Right.
But taking this opportunity to have public affairs come out for these trainings, the relevant training events and stuff like that, gives the soldiers something to take home, or airmen, and show their family.
Yep.
And it lets them become proud of their job, because not everybody comes from a military family. Specialist Baker is a prime example. She's made note several times. She's not from a military family.
Right.
So her family doesn't necessarily know or has
what
seen,
she does.
Right. And so when she has these videos and stuff that we create, she gets taken back. She says, look, check this out. And now all of a sudden her family starts understanding. And this is for any soldier or airman. The family starts understanding. Hey,
and that's very important.
And it helps them get behind their soldier, because, we've all heard it. You don't do nothing but go sit on your rear end at drill weekend. No. We busy on drill weekend.
And the support of the family is important because of that reason.
Right, because it makes going to drill easier.
It does. It does.
When your family says, I got it, I understand, you're doing this, you're training, you're learning, and we're talking about all of airmen and soldiers at this point in time, not just public affairs, they can get behind you and say, hey, I got this, or I understand, a grandparent might understand, hey, I know I have to help out with the kids this weekend. And you create this little community around yourself.
Right.
And it makes your job better and easier.
As well as for the employers too, because so many of our soldiers and airmen also have civilian jobs. And so if that's something that we can show to civilian employers too, it gives them a better understanding whenever we have 3-day drills, or have your annual training where you're leaving for 2 weeks out of the year, but also whenever you respond to natural disasters. So if we have this message and can showcase what you're doing during drill, these civilian employers have a better understanding and understand why you have to go and do that.
And then there's just the cool factor of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's true too.
You might be jerking a cord on a paladin.
Right.
And Monday through Friday, you might be a secretary or whatever, and you're like, hey, boss, look, check this out.
Look what I do.
You ever pull a cord on a paladin?
Right.
No.
Right.
I'm taking a rest that afternoon. But, that's what it's about.
It is.
It's about the pride, and it's about telling that story and getting everybody involved. Everybody involved.
Everybody, yes.
Everybody. Not just the military part, not just the civilian employer part, but it's everybody, your family, the civilians, the general public in South Carolina, and nationwide, folks. Nationwide. South Carolina is a very watched state.
We are.
If nothing else, for the amount of natural disasters we've had.
Yes, we're a very unique state in that we can have hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, ice storms, wildfires. So we're very active.
Right. And we're looked at as a key player in that realm.
Yes.
And not to toot our own horn, but public affairs does an extremely good job
We do.
at getting this information out and letting people know. Give them a brief. Just for fun. Give them a brief how, I guess, our disc mission, our natural disaster stuff works from a public affairs standpoint, how it's an all hands on deck type situation.
Yes, and it's actually very important. And so we have 2 missions whenever it comes to DISCA for public affairs. And that is actually working hand in hand with the TAG and the TAG staff and making sure that they're informed and that they have the information that they need for the sake of understanding what our troops are doing and what they're seeing, but also what the public perception is. So we have people who are kind of working at that level, at that TAG level, to be able to communicate with him and make sure that he understands what resources he has for public affairs, because then the other side of it is that we have the actual field portion. And so that's really where the 108th Public Affairs Detachment comes in, because they will embed with that lead task force. Back in 2015, 2016, all those years when we were responding along the coast, the 108th PAD embedded with that task force with the 218th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade, and we were right there with them. And so we would actually sit in their meetings and find out what missions they were running on, and then send out our soldiers to be actually in bed with those ones who are responding to the missions. So we actually have those two roles. Not only are we in the JOC working with that level, but we're also in the field, and we can be all over the state too. We'll send out 2-man teams or 2-person teams, and they'll go out and provide the coverage for whatever is going on.
Yeah, and we do. When you say all over the state, I mean we have teams everywhere from Greenville all the way down to Beaufort, and in between, and
wherever we're needed,
and running and going. Talking about. I had the thought, and there it went. Just boom, that fast.
Well, I can actually put something else in there too,
Okay,
because
yeah, go
another
ahead.
great piece of it is civilian media. And so that's actually a key point, especially with DISCA and when we're responding, because we want to, it is very beneficial to have partnerships with civilian media. Too often, people get scared of the civilian media, but they're here to help tell our story. So we have our role that we can tell our story, but then we're kind of limited to our reach, just based on who's looking for information on the South Carolina National Guard. But civilian media, if they come and tell our story, the reach grows exponentially. And so that's why we want to make sure that people understand it is a good thing to work with civilian media.
Now, you mentioned civilian media and working with them. You know, average soldier, airman included with that. I gotta work on that. I just need to say guards.
Right, guard members. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't flow.
No.
It doesn't flow. I'm gonna stay soldiers and airmen. After I had this small discussion on there, I decided soldiers and airmen is the way I'm staying with this. But you know, a lot of times they don't know how to interact with media.
That's a great point.
And then the question is who really is media in this day and age of pop a cell phone out, you got bloggers. And we do have some stuff in place to help with that, correct?
We do. We're actually developing and trying to update our resources on that. Typically for DISCA response, we do have media cards that will explain some ground rules, but we're going to update some videos too, so then that way we can have the best tools to provide to the field and be like, this is what you do if the media rolls up on you. But the biggest thing to remember is it is a good thing, and just stay in your lane. So just like we're talking about public affairs, and see how comfortable we are talking about public affairs, but if I started talking about something that I know nothing about, that's where you start getting tripped up about.
Yeah, let's do nuclear physics.
Yeah, no. And so
Okay,
you
fine,
see,
fair enough.
if we just talk about public affairs, that's where we're most comfortable. And so if the civilian media comes and wants to talk to you, as long as you stay in your lane and say, you know what, this is what we're doing and this is what we do, there's nothing wrong with that. And so that's the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway. Be professional and stay in your lane.
There you go. Too easy. Mm-hmm. That sounds like just standard military protocol.
Right,
stuff.
right. Isn't that usually what we're told? Just stay in your lane.
Just stay in your lane. Mm-hmm. Be where you're supposed to be in the uniform you're supposed to be.
Right.
At the time you're supposed to
But
be.
another thing is that, and you know, again, when we push out that other video, we'll talk more on it, but you can also say no. If you're really not comfortable, say, you know, I'm not comfortable with doing an interview, but let me see if I can get you someone in my leadership who would be willing to.
Right. And then once again, that's where public affairs can help also.
You can also contact us.
It's kind of our thing.
It is. We don't mind talking to the media. They usually just don't want to talk to us because, again, they want to talk to you all in the field who are doing those jobs and, you know, have those great missions and great mission sets. So they want to talk to you.
I'm going to talk about one of the benefits of public affairs that people might not realize, people who aren't in the public affairs field, is I've been fortunate with this career field is you get to meet all kinds of people, all kinds of people, and I'm not knocking anybody that you know just goes to regular drill and stuff like that because you know I've done that side too, and that's awesome because you get this nice tight knit family at your unit level. But I've got to see all your families, is what it kind of boils down to,
Right.
And it's fun to move in between all these people, and you see all the different personalities and all the different units and how they do stuff, and you get this unit pride, and you get a little trash talk sometime between one unit and the next.
Right.
It's all friendly, but you get to see it, and it really is awesome, and I've appreciated that opportunity in public affairs to be able to experience that. for anybody who wants to experience that, there are opportunities at public affairs.
Another shameless plug. We are
Another shameless plug. This is our recruiting message.
Yes, right. We are always looking for people who are motivated, who want to take photos, who want to take video,
We want to be on podcasts.
who want to be on podcasts. Yes, we are always looking for people who are motivated to kind of look at that. And you don't even have to have a background in it because we can help train you. So if you are interested in public affairs, you can always reach out to us. A good way to reach out to us is we have a Gmail, a general Gmail account. So scngpao@gmail.com. And that way it will come to us. It's a group one, and we can be able to field any of your questions that you might have about public affairs.
I'm gonna take one more shameless plug because you mentioned us being able to train or get you spun up. But the talent set that we have in public affairs right now is astronomical.
It's amazing.
I mean, it really is. We have excellent photographers. We have one decent videographer, specialist baker. But we do, and the thing is everybody's kind of we're multifaceted. And we all do, and that's one thing about our group. We all do a little bit of everything. We
Yes.
do photo, we do video,
Yes.
we do this. But we really do have some people who are just above and beyond specialists in their area.
Very much so.
Sergeant First Class, Cash and NCOIC, and
Subject matter expert right there.
and I was a soldier underneath his, and he's a good photographer, good videographer, amazing announcer,
Yeah. So that's another skill. Yes.
and people don't think about that.
Nope.
This is not something that comes naturally. Not for me. They didn't think I was going to make it through school.
Here you are.
Here I am, 9, 10, whatever years, 10 years later. But you got people like him, and you got people like, you got your Sergeant DeJovenes and your Lieutenant at your Agos and your Calhouns and your Yaros and all these folks out there that have been doing this for years, and they're good. They're good. And it's a great opportunity. If you are interested, there is a wealth of knowledge.
Right now. Yep.
If you want to learn, there's all kinds of stuff available. And our leadership is really good because they will let us. I mean, you're our leadership. You're part of it.
Right.
I talk about her like she's not here. Our
yeah,
leadership is not here at this moment. But y'all let us innovate as soldiers
Yes.
and stuff. I mean, y'all have let me take all kinds of chances.
It's a great way to grow.
And some of them have failed horribly, and some of them have done all right.
Some have been super successful.
Some have done all right. So it's that's a nice part of this.
It's important.
This career field and whatnot, and going from there. So for you, everybody has their thing in public affairs that I guess they like above. We all have the same thing. Any job. So kind of a little personal insight. Let's play get to know.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Get to know. What's the one thing in public affairs that just kind of really gets you all jazzed up?
Well, you know what? Honestly, you kind of touched on it before, is that we get to see a little bit of everything. And that's really been the best part because I've primarily been public affairs all my whole career. I started in the Air National Guard. I switched over to the I switched over to the Maryland Army National Guard. I did a tour at NGB. I came down to South Carolina. And within that, I've done a couple things outside. I've been a battalion S1. I've been an OCS instructor, but primarily public affairs. And with that career field, I've been able to embed with so many different units and meet so many different people and just see what we do. And so often if you are just one MOS or AFSC, that's what you do. And you may not see other things, but we get to see a little bit of everything and experience a little bit of everything and learn about a little bit of everything. And so I think that's the best part about it. And that's been the best part for my entire career.
Yeah. On that, and she talked about learning a little bit of everything. Quick thanks to all the units that I've ever gone out with that let me play with their toys.
Right, exactly. See, yes, that's a great point.
I've gotten to sit on the back of a Chinook. I've had Black Hawk pilots scare the mess out of me. I've been down with the Paladins and what's just I could list off all day long, but all of them have been awesome. And you get to touch, you get to play,
Exactly.
you get to learn.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's our job. That's
our
our job.
We get paid to do this.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, it's wonderful. I really don't have a complaint in the world about that.
So, speaking of, we kind of mentioned it earlier, the being in Colombia.
Yep.
South America, not South Carolina.
Right. Columbia with an extra O.
With the O and not the U.
And another thing that we don't know a lot about, but we just learned some stuff about
is the SPP, or State Partnership Program. And we have a special guest that's going to join us and talk to us a little bit more about that program and what's all involved.
Yep.
All right, welcome Brigadier General Brad Owens, Director of the Joint Staff of the South Carolina National Guard, here with us today to talk about SPP, the State Partnership Program. You've been involved with it for a while now, to say the least. Could you tell us a little bit about the program for the folks that might not know anything about it?
Yeah, sure. So the State Partnership Program's been in existence for 27 years now. We've got total Guard Nation has over 70 country partner teams, relationships, and it's just our way of building capability, capacity with our allies and our partners around the world. The benefit to the State Partnership Program is the National Guard's able to provide an enduring, long-lasting effect, long-lasting relationship. And it's been successful because especially with the South Carolina National Guard in our country of Colombia, which we've been with them since 2012. What it's proven is that we can gain considerable credibility with our partner nation because of our persistent presence, the continuity that our engagements provides with the Colombian military, the diversity that we have in our ranks. Including our female population and our values-based military, the professionalism that our soldiers bring to bear, and certainly is what's made it a complete success.
And so you mentioned about the engagements that we've had with our partner nation. Can you talk a little bit about what some of the engagements have entailed?
I can. I want to first say, though, that we are fully vested with Southcom and Army South. I mean, Admiral Fowler has a vision for the Southern Hemisphere, and Colombia plays a strategic role in that. First off, of course, we have to support the national military strategy through our security cooperation. It's a very highly competitive environment. And especially what's happening with Venezuela, the Cuban influence, the China influence, the Russian and Iran influence is ever present, and they're outspinning us in the region. And so security cooperation really in the SPP program throughout the region, not just Colombia, but throughout the region, is a key enabler to get after being the nation of choice to some of these countries. So there's a Colombian country plan. Our lines of effort fit into that plan. And we just facilitate the transition of the Colombian military in this, post-FARC environment, fighting the ELN and the FARC. Over 50 years, we're doing all we can to invest in human capital and to grow their talent and help them in building, again, the capability and capacities that they need for this post-FARC environment. What we've seen is Venezuela basically has magnified the need for regional leadership, and the Colombian military is postured to provide that. And so we We have, in all of our lines of effort, supported the country plan, supporting Admiral Fowler's vision, and we have, because of the professionalism and the capabilities of the South Carolina National Guard, we built that credibility over that 6 years. So that the common themes that we are constantly promoting are things that your military, our military, promotes. We're a values-based Army. We're highly lethal, but we are also one of the most compassionate armies in the world. We certainly recognize that our people are our most important asset, and we promote jointness in everything that we do. And that's difficult for some countries to adopt, appreciate. But Columbia is well on its way to recognizing the how important jointness is. The second thing that's kind of a common theme in everything that we do is interoperability. And our doctrine is based around jointness and unified land operations. Well, they just completed a conversion of that doctrine into their doctrine called Damasco, and that promotes the interoperability with the U.S. because it's very, very similar to unified land operations. And so you take a doctrinal-based force that has strong professional values-based military, and you add in some what we're doing with them with capabilities-based planning and the standardization of their formations, the accountability that they're able to hold against their commanders. Then you end up with a highly respected military that can provide country sovereignty first. It can provide internal security second, so external and internal force, and eventually get to the point where it is exportable. To the point where we hope that one day they will be side by side with us again on a deployment in the near future.
And then you had mentioned for the doctrine, and I know too that you've gone down there plenty of times, and as well as the Colombian military partners have come up here. But can you talk a little bit about the Together Forward exercise that's currently going on? Because I know that's supposed to be about trading the doctrine for the infantry.
Yeah, it's extremely proud of how this has evolved over the last few years. We've been asking for a live fire exercise in Colombia or a major exercise in Colombia really from the inception of the program. And the federal funding honestly just hasn't been there to do it. But this year, one of our key lines of effort is building readiness. I mean, it's the Chief of Staff of the Army's number one priority. Mm-hmm. So what better way to build readiness than to train with a partner nation that is well versed in in small unit tactics, and so the 1st of the 118th has tapped out. Colonel Ken Snow has led his troops down into Tolamaida, Colombia. They're doing Operation Together Forward, which is platoon live fire exercise, and training side by side with the Colombian infantry. Hopefully, next year, a follow-on force will do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have the same Colombian military that trained with the 1st of the 118th this year to attend XCTC with the 1st of the 118th next year. And then the following year, when the 1st of the 118th rotates through the National Training Center, our hopes is to carry a Colombian platoon or a company minus to the National Training Center. So that's it's awesome. And so that's the readiness line of effort, and we're very proud because of all the work that the team's done in putting this together. It's not an easy task to move troops and weapons and ammunition and all the logistical support. But our South has done a really good job, and I look forward to continuing that line of effort. The Colombians were with us in the 50s on the Korean Peninsula, and they lost soldiers side by side with us, and so we don't take that lightly. And certainly having fought, internal problems with counter-narco-terrorism over the last 50 years, they know their jungle tactics, and we can learn a lot from them. So there's mutual respect. We certainly respect their highly professional military and the strong leadership that they have in country. The other line of effort that we're really proud about is their transformational efforts. And so we've been working with, back in 2014 or so, they started a division of their military, senior level of their military, called the COTEF, which is basically a transformation office. It would be very similar to our RKIC in our TRADOC, our capabilities integration command. And I have been going down 2 or 3 times a year since 2014 and really working with them on capabilities-based planning, the standardization piece that I mentioned, and transformation of their military to support humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, working very closely with their national police, as well as looking at new emerging technologies and new emerging capabilities and some of the gaps and weaknesses that they have in their current force structure allocation. And so you will see, just as we're building things like cyber, you will see them build cyber capability over time. You will see one thing we're extremely proud of, which took a number of years, is the reserve component. And building a National Guard-like structure, a reserve component structure, to hopefully bring them into a more cost-effective structure that can sustain over time. So that's the transformation piece. We just finished a major air show, and so our F-16s are returning now, if they're not back yet, and kind of a localized red flag event down there after the air show, force on force, where we took our fabulous 169th Fighter Wing and the Swamp Foxes, and teamed them with the Colombian aviation, Colombian Air Force, on the blue side, and then we did the same thing up in Rio Negro on the red side, and then they kind of did a joint or a multinational force on force. It was pretty cool.
That is awesome. That's
It is
so
very
wonderful
awesome.
to hear all the engagements that we've had with our partner nation like that.
Yeah, and there's so much more. There's our work that we've done on the ground maintenance on the logistical side, and working with them with tiered levels of sustainment has endured over the years. we're, of course, Chief Puffenbarger worked with them really hard on talent management and, the idea of building a professional warrant officer program. We're working with their NCO Academy and really looking forward to establishing a cadet exchange with the Citadel.
That's wonderful.
And where 2 or 3 of their cadets from their military academy come to the Citadel, and a couple of the Citadel cadets. Columbia, most people don't know this, Columbia's got one of the largest rotary wing forces, primarily Black Hawk, in all of Central and South America. And so anything that we can do to help them with their operational readiness, anything we can do to help them with safety, to introduce new rotary wing capabilities, like our Bambi buckets and our SC Heart and those kind of things, we're continuing to work with them as they stand up a entry-level rotary wing course down at Tolomita. So it's very important.
Now, we talked obviously in readiness, and a lot of people do think about the F-16s, the helicopter, rotary wing asset, infantry folks on the ground. But over the years that I've been around to cover the SPP, a huge part, and I think a lot of people wouldn't realize it, but our engineering group has done mass amounts of work with the folks down there, and I know that's an area kind of near and dear to your heart. But being able, what is it, when you start getting down to that type of stuff, those technicals like support career fields, how important that is to share that information with the Columbias.
Yeah, Columbia's always interested in our doctrine and the management of our force over time, and certainly some of those technical skill sets are very important to them. General Cordosa was the general over the engineer regiment, basically, in Columbia, a good friend of mine. And, we've assisted him on a number of efforts. It's primarily on kind of a humanitarian assistance, disaster relief kind of twist. And so on a number of occasions where either we've had a high-level NORTHCOM exercise here in South Carolina, or we've had a real event here, we always invite them to kind of shadow us and to learn. Of course, their structure is very different on the civilian side, yet there's a lot of lessons that we all can learn from one another once you go through some of these national level exercises on how to apply some of these technical capabilities and the like. The other piece that I'm extremely excited about, brand new line of effort that we've been asking for and talking about for the last, probably 2 years or so, is our air defense. And you talk about a technical field, that's about as technical as it can get. And so in a couple of weeks, we will host some very senior level Colombian officers, general officer level, in Anderson, South Carolina, and we will talk with them about integrated air missile defense and how you can use that protective umbrella to protect your critical assets in country, and certainly. Again, because of the Venezuelan crisis, how you can, ensure your air sovereignty. So if you couple what we have at the battery level, all the way through the brigade, the battalion and the brigade level in South Carolina, all the way to the theater level with the 263rd AAMDC, we have both tactical, operational, and strategic capabilities right here in South Carolina that we want to introduce to the Colombian leadership. And then you lay on top of that the 169th Fighter Squadron and what they're doing with the air sovereignty mission. You've got a complete joint picture of how we do integrated air missile defense in this country. Of course, what General Bramhall, what General Sheriff have done with the 263rd and working with our NORTHCOM, working with the other states like Ohio and Florida and I believe it's South Dakota to North Dakota and Mississippi, if I got it right, with the other air defense structure in Compo 2. And what they're doing in the National Capital Region, can be translated right into Bogota, And so we're excited about that. We've been asking for it for a while. The great thing about security cooperation is you don't know what you don't know, and you open up a line of effort that is certainly vetted with the country plan and certainly vetted with the Southcom AOR and the plan Admiral Fowler and his staff at Southcom have. But you plant seeds, and you're planting an F-16 seed with the air show in Rio Negro, and yes, expensive, but again, you don't know what their budget, what their country's GDP and it's going to be 5-10 years from now, and you're just introducing them to a military capability that may meet a need in the future. We'll do the same thing with air defense. They've struggled a little bit with the air defense initiative because it is such a joint idea, a joint solution set, and that's primarily what we're hoping to get out of this symposium or this key leader engagement that we've got coming up in the next couple of weeks. So very proud of that. Really look forward to our future joint multinational deployment one of these days. They are extremely interested in a United Nations peacekeeping operation or a NATO peacekeeping operation. And so part of their transformation and part of their idea about exportability is well, let me back up. First off, there's handling the internal strife and the remnants of FARC and the ELN.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so they got to worry about that.
Yes, sir.
Then they got to worry about the border and their country's sovereignty and the Venezuelan crisis. They are very much interested, looking a little bit broader. They're very much interested in regional leadership. And so we're helping them host conferences, and we're bringing in some of the countries that are contiguous to the region. And then globally, that exportability not only into South America and Central America, but also around the world in a multinational deployment. And if it's not with us, then we will assist them in United Nations peacekeeping operations validation, because we have done that before with RCENT, if you recall, a few years ago. And so we're working with the United Nations, and Ambassador or former Ambassador Haley has helped us with some key contacts at the United Nations, and then they're working also with the NATO country teams for their peacekeeping validation as well. And so there's a whole different set of military manuals, basically, and that validation process. And so the idea is that maybe that's a way in which we can get our training site command involved on training site management, and then also a key way for us to get our Regional Training Institute, our RTI, involved. And so we're looking very closely at that. The final thing that kind of what the future holds. I talked about the reserve component. I talked about the air defense. I talked about cyber. We've got a cyber conference coming up in the next couple of weeks. We talked about the cadet exchange, and we talked about, a multinational, continuing the live fire and the readiness line of effort, and an eventual multinational deployment. But the final thing is we want this program to evolve where it's not just mill to mill, but it's civ to mill, it's civilian to civilian, where we can establish a stronger relationship, really a whole of state approach, so that we can create, support economic development in the state, and just improve our relationships overall. I think it's going to bring stability to the region. I think it's going to bring economic development and a stronger relationship, with our partner nation.
Yes, sir. And with all these future endeavors and these great efforts that we're doing, if there are soldiers and airmen in the South Carolina National Guard who want to get involved in the program, are there opportunities for that, or what would they need to do to be able to get involved?
Well, we try to open it up as much as possible. I mean, this is not a full-time manning program,
Yes,
certainly not. We want that civilian acquired skill set to come. We want to promote the citizen soldier idea in everything that we do, and so that M-Day soldier obviously is the key asset. We can't force a capability on someone. They've got to pull us in. They've got to ask for us to come in. That lets us know they're serious about, a certain capability or certain interest in a weapon system or whatever. And so a lot of it has to do with what branch, what MOS, that kind of thing. And it's a lot harder for me to get, some heavy equipment operators down there to Columbia than it is for me to get some light infantry fighters. And a lot of it is kind of mid-level management on up. And so I would say one of the best ways is to become more words leaving me right now, but the best way is to understand the culture, and certainly we are always looking for Spanish speakers, and that can help us with the language barrier. And I think that if our traditional soldiers were to invest some time on their own, we could certainly find a place for them in the program.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's good.
Perfect.
Well, we mass amounts of information. A lot of stuff I hadn't even.
I had no idea about
No
it.
clue.
That's wonderful.
No clue.
Nah.
So very informative. We're glad you took time out of your day to stop by and talk with us. As always, you're more than welcome to come back here anytime you want to talk more about SPP or anything else that you want to discuss.
Yeah, well, we appreciate what our public affairs office is doing, and certainly these podcasts are vital in getting the word out because, y'all sit very close to my office in the building, and so if you hadn't heard it, our other 9,000 soldiers maybe hadn't heard it either. So I'm glad you afforded us the opportunity
Yes, sir.
to be here.
Thank
Yes,
you so
sir.
much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thanks.
Well, that was outstanding. We really appreciate General Owens being able to
Yes,
come by.
that was wonderful. A lot of really good information about the state partnership program.
I didn't even know.
I had no idea some of the stuff, the different engagements that we've been doing, the history of the program. I had no idea.
The thing is when you hear state partnership program, it sounds like something where we get together for annual training or something, hang out, and and do a little bit of stuff. But like it's massive.
It's huge, and we're sharing ideas with each other. It goes both ways. That's wonderful.
I mean, he mentioned the jungle tactics and stuff. You don't even think about that
No.
type of stuff. Who would have thought, hey, this is something we need to learn? But we found ourselves in that environment in our history before, and these folks live in it.
Right. So we have a resource,
Yeah.
a direct resource. So, I mean, that's wonderful. And I really look forward to like seeing more from that program in our state.
Yeah, and it, obviously there's this plan. Who knew there was a plan?
Right. A way ahead.
There's a way ahead. There's a massive way ahead.
Right.
And it's interesting to see, you know, you don't think about it. I guess maybe living in the United States, we've had our established military for so many years.
Right.
So many years. We might have had some changes here and there with the whole Marines, Navy split, Air, Army, and all that kind of stuff. You know, whatever. But we're part of a nation building its and they didn't have a reserve component.
No. They're just now looking at that as a peacetime force, as having a reserve component.
Which makes me think, it gives me the realization, guess what? Probably most countries don't have.
Right. It's so much that you don't think about whenever you're just here. Like, you don't think about what's going on around the rest of the world. And so that's a great resource with the state partnership program, is it gives you an opportunity to be educated on another country.
Right. I mean, and the stuff that we're working on, the air show, the Together Forward stuff, the fact that they were able to get our 169 Fighter Wing folks together, do this whole little, like, I mean, I know when he was talking about it probably wasn't fair, but I was totally picturing some Top Gun scenario.
I know, whenever he was saying, like, they were working hand in hand like that.
Like, so did they invert?
Right.
Maybe not. Probably didn't. But,
Probably no.
You know, you have dreams and hopes.
Right, right.
But that's cool.
It's wonderful.
That's cool. And then the fact that the M-Day soldiers have the opportunity to get involved in this.
Right.
You know, a little work on your part.
Right.
Nothing comes for free.
No.
But
it looks like there may be opportunities in the future.
right, if you do, you know, just do a little work on it and do it, and then, you know, it's another thing that I thought was interesting when he talked about the future operations, I guess, of this program, and from the Colombian Army standpoint, you know, here's a nation who wants to be able to deploy worldwide that don't have that capability currently.
Right.
That's impressive. I mean, that's a conscious decision that says, hey, we want to get involved on a global level. And it's our soldiers. It's us. We're the ones helping, like,
teach them.
Just take a moment.
Let that sink in.
Breathe that in and let that sink in, that you as South Carolina National Guard soldiers and airmen
are teaching them.
Are teaching a country how to be able to have a deployable worldwide.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Right.
You're welcome. That's outstanding. That's phenomenal stuff. Like, that's the type of stuff you get excited about.
Right. That just showcases the South Carolina National Guard is a relevant force.
Yeah. And we're a professional force. And most importantly, and this is always a key thing for me, this might not be the general's radar as far as things go, but for me, that tells me how proficient, technically skilled, and how good y'all are at your job. Bottom line.
Because we wouldn't want to put you in that situation otherwise.
Right. I mean, you have to be, once again, take it in. You have to be so good at your job that you can teach a whole other nation.
Right. How to do that.
How to do that.
You guys are the subject matter experts.
Yeah. Score one us.
Right.
Not that we're tallying.
Right.
Because that wouldn't be right.
No.
One, us. But, yeah, and we were able to speak with General Owens as he was headed out of the studio today, and it looks like we might be able to get him back on.
And that would be wonderful. I mean, you know, he sees so much at his level that, again, he made a great point, is that sometimes we don't hear about things, and, you know, I sit 10 feet away from him, you know, on a full-time basis, and a lot of times I don't hear about things, so we know that you all probably don't hear about it as well. So it's a great opportunity for leadership to get out those important parts and those important messages out to the field.
Yeah, and super cool thing about General Owens, and I've always appreciated it. I've obviously met and know most of our general officers, and all of them have their own thing. But if you want to get into the tech stuff, if you really want to know the nuts and bolts on a subject, if he knows about it,
He's there.
He knows that part. Excellent, excellent, and
The retention, like his memory retention is insane.
yeah. I mean, he's probably forgot more than what I.
Well, that more than I will ever know.
Right. So, good resource. I'm glad
Yes.
he liked being here, and definitely
Hopefully he'll be back soon.
he'll be back soon. So, I'm Specialist David Erskine,
And I'm Captain Jessica Donnelly.
and we'll catch you in the next episode.